some people didn't like any of that crap. So they invented their own protocol. Databases, right? Most databases invent their own protocol on top of raw TCP. So because hey, you say we like a TCP, sends a bunch of binary, it's bidirectional by default. I don't need to use your protocol, right? I just I'm gonna define my own protocol, message format, and everything. That people use raw TCP. An example of that is Redis. Redis uses a RESP, I think. They invented their own protocol and they packed it into TCP in a very compact way. Okay, so a lot of people use that as well. So it's open, right? But here's the big problem, guys. No matter what you choose as a communication, REST, right? GraphQL, SOAP, raw TCP, you have your client that sends this communication and your server that receives those communication have to agree. How do they agree? You need a client library. Guys, REST API. If you want to build a REST API, guess what? What is your client library? It is the HTTP library. And if you're lucky and you're building a web application, you just saved your time, right? You do not need a client library because who's your client in this case? You guessed it. It's the browser. The browsers are the biggest HTTP client library on existence, right? And you might say, Hussein, why do we care? Client library, right? It's a big deal, guys. Having a client library is a huge responsibility because, yeah, if it's a browser, you don't really care, right? If you make a fetch request or an XHR and you call a browser method, the browser actually is establishing the HTTP communication with the server. It negotiates the protocol via ALPN. It does the TLS for you. It makes sure that the server actually supports HTTP 2. If it doesn't, it falls back to HTTP 1. It does the headers. It does the streams. It does everything for you. And so you don't have to do anything. You just make your SKI request, and that's it. Your GET request, your POST request, and the browser takes care of it. But guess what? What if you are not on the browser, which is you're a Go application, you're a Python application, you're a JavaScript application on Node.js, on V8, right? Guess what? You need an HTTP client library. You need a SOAP library. You need a library that understands the protocol you communicate in, right? So in order to do that, you're responsible for the HTTP library, and you must have done that. If you're building a Python application, you import whatever, the request. Someone is maintaining that, right? It's not for free, right? So the request, or curl, for example, similar thing. Someone is maintaining that. It makes sure that it establishes TLS. It makes sure to understand TLS 1.2. It makes sure to understand TLS 1.3 negotiation if you're communicating with HTTPS. It makes sure to negotiate ALPN, application layer protocol negotiation, HTTP 2, and in the future HTTP 3, which is quick, right? It negotiates all that stuff, right? It is a lot of work. Client libraries are a lot of work. And that's what happens, right? A lot of people will use HTTP and a client library on C#, for example, and they will build their own application, and their server is actually a REST API, and they start building that stuff. But guess what? Now they want their server is upgraded to HTTP 2, and their client library is built by someone who just decided to ditch the library and no longer maintains it. Guess what? Your client library is still using HTTP 1.1. So you do not take advantage thing. If there is a security problem, nobody's fixing your security problem with HTTP client library. So that's the problem with client library. They are hard to maintain. You need to patch them. If there is a new feature, you have to add these features to your client library, right? There is a C# HTTP client library. There is a Java HTTP library. There's a Python. There's a JavaScript. There is any language must have HTTP library, and it became popular, so a lot of people built it. But still, someone needs to maintain it. So HTTP client library is the worst. WebSockets is the same. You need a library that understands how to talk in WebSockets, right? If you're using browser, problem solved. Because Someone else, Firefox is maintaining your library. Chrome is maintaining your library. Brave is maintaining your library. But if you're your own, building your own Python application, then yeah, you have to build it yourself, which kind of sucks, doesn't it? So that's the problem. And there's where gRPC came into existence. Says, okay, we can't go on like this. Every time we invent something new, there are a lot of client libraries that comes with it. gRPC, which developed by Google, a lot of people say that it's short for Google RPC, but some people say no, it's not. And I hate when people does that. It's just like, yeah, it's just for gRPC, whatever. So yeah, so what they did is like, okay, we're gonna standardize the whole thing. This is the second attempt. People tried it in the 90s. The SOAP failed. This is the second attempt, and I think people are succeeding, right? There are still problems, but still, I think we're succeeding here. We're gonna unify the client libraries. Google or whoever maintains gRPC project is gonna build the client libraries for gRPC, because guess what? It's a new thing, right? It's a new client library because we're gonna use the HTTP2 protocol, right? We need a client that understands how to talk HTTP2. We need a server that understands how to respond HTTP2. We need a server and a client that understand protocol buffer. And we talked about protocol buffers. They are on schema, kind of binary format. And they said, let's solve this problem. We will build gRPC for you guys. We're going to build it for you. If you use Python, here's the code how to generate it. Just reference this, and guess what? Is going to build it on and we're going to maintain it. If there's a bug, we're going to fix it for you. Someone else is maintaining that. It's kind of like the browsers, if you think about it, okay? But it became this thick thing, right? Thick library, because now it needs to understand HTTP2, and this is also hidden from you guys as a client and server, because in the future, if Google or the open source implementer decided to say, HTTP2 is dead, let's move to HTTP3. Guess what? All your client application will just magically work because they are hiding this from you. They are hiding the fact of HTTP2 backend from you. They are hiding this stuff. Yes, it's stateful protocol, but yeah, they're hiding this stuff from you. So the moment you upgrade your client, right, you use the latest version, you just immediately use that. Right? And because it uses protocol buffer, it's now language agnostic. So if you have your client is Python and your server is Go or C#, they can communicate because the protocol buffer, that's a property of the protocol buffers where they are language agnostic, right? They are language neutral. That's the correct word. Where you compile the proto file into a binary format, and when you send binary format, it is binary format. Who cares? When you receive it, you deserialize it back into native representation, whether that's Python or JavaScript or C# or wherever, right? So you can communicate with that. So that's why gRPC was invented. It solves the biggest problem with a client library. And I believe that is the main reason gRPC was invented. Okay? And you can start seeing some good and bad about this.